You are not stuck. I know it feels that way. I know it feels like you have been trading for months or years and you are spinning in the same circle, learning the same lessons, making the same mistakes, having the same breakdowns, but you are not stuck. You are in a stage, and the stage you are in right now is trying to teach you something specific, something you cannot skip, but you are fighting the lesson instead of learning it. That is why nothing seems to change. Mark Douglas identified 3 distinct stages between where you sit right now and genuine trading mastery. Not the lifestyle mastery that gets sold on the internet, not the screenshots, not the Lamborghini, not the rented penthouse. Real mastery, the kind where you execute your plan, accept whatever the market gives you, and walk away without your self-worth attached to the number. That kind of mastery exists, but it is earned through a specific sequence of psychological transformations, each building on the one before it, each containing a trap that can stall you for years if you do not recognize it. If you are the kind of trader who wants to see exactly where you are in this progression, not guess, but actually measure your execution patterns, your emotional states, your belief structures over time, that is the kind of deep self-observation that the Speculator's Journal makes possible. It lets you see the data behind your development instead of relying on how you feel about your progress. The link is in the description. But first, let me give you the map. Because without the map, the territory is just confusion. Let me start by holding up a mirror, because I suspect you do not fully recognize the stage you are in, and that misrecognition is the reason you feel lost. Here is what I see when I look at most struggling traders. They have learned a strategy. They can explain it to you clearly. They can show you back-tested results, and yet they cannot execute it consistently. Some days they follow the plan, and it feels like holding their breath underwater, painful, unnatural, forced. Other days they abandon the plan entirely and trade on instinct, on feeling, on whatever the chart seems to be telling them in the moment. And then there are the rare days when everything clicks, when decisions come easily, execution feels effortless, and the P and L takes care of itself, but those days are unpredictable and impossible to replicate on demand. If you recognized yourself in that description, you are oscillating between the first 2 stages. And that oscillation, the back and forth between rigid rule following and impulsive freestyling, is one of the most destructive patterns in all of trading. You are not committing fully to either mode. You are not building the foundation that the first stage requires, and you have not earned the flexibility that the second stage allows. You are caught in the space between, and that space is where accounts go to die. Mark Douglas observed this oscillation in trader after trader, analytically capable people who could not stay in one mode long enough for it to produce results. They would white-knuckle through a few days of mechanical execution, feel the psychological discomfort of rigid rule following, and then abandon it for something that felt more natural. But natural, at that point in their development, was just another word for undisciplined. They had not yet earned the right to trade by feel. How many of those patterns did you recognize? The days of forced discipline that never last, the impulsive sessions that follow, the rare moments of clarity that disappear as quickly as they arrived. If you are honest, this is your experience. And the reason it keeps repeating is that you are trying to solve a stage-specific problem with stage-inappropriate tools. Now let me destroy the mental model you are operating under, because it is the source of your confusion. Most traders think mastery is a straight line. You start bad, you get gradually better, and you eventually arrive at good. Smooth, linear, continuous improvement. This model is wrong. Mastery in trading does not work that way. It works in stages, distinct psychological plateaus separated by transitions. And the transitions do not feel like progress. They feel like regression. They feel like everything you learned is suddenly useless. They feel like falling apart. This is why so many traders quit at year 2 or year 3. Not because they were not developing, but because they hit the transition between stages and misinterpreted the discomfort as proof that trading was not for them. They were on the verge of a breakthrough and they walked away because no one told them that what they were experiencing was normal. It was supposed to feel that way. Mark Douglas understood that a trader's psychological development follows a predictable pattern as predictable as the stages of learning any complex skill, and that the emotional turbulence of each stage is not an obstacle to be eliminated, but a signal to be read. If you can read the signal, If you can identify which stage you are in and what it demands, you can navigate it deliberately. If you cannot, you will be thrown around by it unconsciously, oscillating and regressing for years. Let me walk you through the 3 stages. For each one, I will tell you what it feels like from inside, what the trap is, what you must do to survive it, and exactly how to know when you have earned the right to move forward. Let me talk about the first stage, the mechanical stage. This is where every real transformation begins, and it is the stage that most traders either skip too quickly or never fully complete. In the mechanical stage, you trade purely by rules. Every entry, every exit, every position size, every stop placement is dictated by a written plan. There is no discretion. There is no, I feel like this trade is going to work. There is no flexibility. You are a machine. Your only job is to execute the plan exactly as it is written, without deviation, regardless of how you feel. This sounds simple. It is not. It is among the hardest things you will ever do as a trader. And the reason it is so hard is that it violates every instinct your mind has. Your brain wants to evaluate, to predict, to have an opinion about whether this particular trade will work. It wants to say, yes, the criteria are met, but something feels off. I will skip this one. It wants to say, the setup is not quite there, but the move is happening and I need to get in now. Every one of those impulses must be overridden, and overriding them feels like holding your hand on a hot stove. Here is the psychology of why this stage is so critical. In the mechanical stage, you are not learning to trade. You are learning to follow rules under emotional duress. You are building neural pathways that allow you to execute a plan even when every cell in your body is screaming at you to do something different. This disciplined foundation is the bedrock of everything that follows. Without it, the more advanced stages collapse. Flexibility without the foundation of mechanical discipline is just chaos with a better vocabulary. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, I already follow my rules most of the time. But most of the time is not the mechanical stage. The mechanical stage is all of the time, 100%, not 80%, not except when the setup is obviously perfect. 100% for a minimum of 20 consecutive trades with 0 deviation. If you cannot point to 20 consecutive trades where every rule was followed on every one of them, you have not completed this stage. You are still in it, and you need to stop pretending otherwise. Now, let me tell you the trap. The trap of the mechanical stage is premature escape. Here is how it happens. You follow your rules for a few days. It feels unnatural, restrictive, almost painful. You see trades you want to take that do not qualify, and they work without you. You feel the frustration of watching moves happen that your rules kept you out of. Then comes the critical moment, a day where you follow your rules perfectly and still lose money. 2, 3, 4 losses in a row, all according to plan. And your brain says, see, the rules do not work. I need to use my judgment. That thought is the trap. Because the rules do work over a sample of 100 trades, 200 trades, across multiple market conditions. But you have been in the mechanical stage for 8 trades, and you are evaluating the system based on a sample size so small that the results are statistically meaningless. You are quitting the gym after 10 days because you do not have visible abs. Here is what you must do to survive. Commit to a specific number of mechanically perfect trades before evaluating anything. I recommend 20 as a minimum. 50 is better. During this period, you change nothing. You do not adjust your rules. You do not evaluate P&L. You simply execute and record. Execute and record. Execute and record. Let me give you the worked example. You have a strategy with clear entry criteria, a fixed stop, and a defined target. On Monday, 3 setups qualify. You take all 3. 2 lose, 1 wins. You log each trade, noting perfect adherence. On Tuesday, a setup is forming that does not quite meet your entry criteria. The confirmation candle has not closed yet, but the move is starting. Every instinct screams at you to enter. You do not. It runs 60 pips without you. You feel sick, but you log it, passed on non-qualifying setup, plan followed. That moment, the moment where you watched money leave without you and stayed mechanical, is worth more than any winning trade you have ever taken. Because that moment built the disciplined foundation that every future decision will stand on. How do you know when the mechanical stage is complete? When you can execute your plan for 20 consecutive trades without feeling the urge to deviate, not without deviating without the urge. When following your rules shifts from an act of willpower to an automatic behavior, you have built the foundation. You are ready. But the next stage is where most traders get permanently lost. Let me talk about the second stage, the subjective stage. This is the most dangerous part of the journey, precisely because it feels like mastery. In the subjective stage, you begin incorporating discretion into your trading. You have proven to yourself that you can follow rules perfectly. Now you start noticing things your rules do not capture: subtle context, quality differences between setups, a sense that this particular instance of your pattern is stronger or weaker than usual, and you begin acting on those observations. This is appropriate. This is growth. The subjective stage is where your experience integrates with your rules, where pattern recognition sharpens, where your feel for the market develops beyond what a checklist can measure. Traders in this stage often produce their most brilliant individual trades, perfectly timed entries, exits that seem prescient, reads that look like magic. But here is the trap. The subjective stage is where discretion and undiscipline become nearly indistinguishable. And in real time, you cannot tell the difference. You skip a setup because it does not feel right. Was that discretion or fear? You add to a winning position because the context is strong. Was that sophisticated reading or greed? You widen a stop because the structure suggests more room. Was that flexibility or the refusal to accept a loss? In every case, the behavior looks identical from the outside, and the trader, inside the moment, genuinely cannot tell which one is operating. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking you can feel the difference. That when you skip a trade out of genuine market read, it feels different from when you skip one out of fear. I have worked with enough traders to tell you with absolute certainty it does not. Not reliably, not in real time. The distinction only becomes clear in retrospect, when you compare the results of your discretionary decisions against your mechanical baseline across a statistically significant sample. Here is what you must do to survive this stage. You must track every discretionary decision separately. When you deviate from your plan even thoughtfully, even with reasons you believe in, you log it with a different tag. Discretionary skip, discretionary size increase, discretionary stop adjustment, and at the end of every month, you compare the aggregate results of your discretionary decisions against what would have happened if you had stayed mechanical. This comparison is brutal, and it is necessary because here is what most traders discover. Their discretionary decisions, on average, perform worse than their mechanical baseline. The trades they skipped would have won. The stops they widened led to larger losses. The sizes they increased produced more drawdown, not more profit. Not always, but on average. And in trading, average is the only thing that counts. Let me give you the worked example. For 3 months, you track everything. You took 120 trades, 90 were mechanical, 30 were discretionary deviations. The mechanical trades produced a net gain of $4,200. The discretionary trades produced a net loss of $1,800. Combined result, $2,400. Without the discretionary trades, $4,200. Your feel for the market cost you $1,800 in 3 months. That data does not lie, and it tells you something you would never learn from your gut, that your discretion at this stage is not adding value, it is destroying it. That data is humbling, and it is the cure. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You stop trusting your deviations blindly. You start questioning them. You start keeping only the discretionary moves that are genuinely proven by the data and eliminating the rest. Over time, you build a hybrid approach that is more than mechanical but still grounded in evidence. How do you know when the subjective stage is complete? When your discretionary decisions, measured across at least 100 data points, consistently outperform your mechanical baseline. Not occasionally, consistently, When the data proves that your feel for the market genuinely adds value, not just makes you feel more in control, you are ready for the final stage. Let me talk about the third stage. The intuitive stage, this is where mastery lives. And it looks nothing like what you imagine. In the intuitive stage, the distinction between rules and discretion dissolves. You are not following a plan and adding judgment on top of it. The plan, the judgment, the execution, and the emotional state have merged into a single fluid process. You see a setup, you take it, or you do not. The decision is instantaneous, and it is aligned not because you are never wrong, but because your decision-making is operating in genuine harmony with probability. You are not hoping, you are not afraid, you are not excited, you are neutral and responsive. This sounds mystical. It is not. It is the natural result of having laid a mechanical foundation, refined it with data-driven discretion, and practiced both for long enough that they became automatic. The way a concert pianist no longer thinks about finger placement on the keys. The technique is internalized. The conscious mind is free to operate at a higher level. Here is the psychology. In the intuitive stage, the trader's relationship with uncertainty has fundamentally changed. Uncertainty is no longer experienced as threat. It is experienced as neutral, simply the nature of the environment. This is not a belief the trader adopted from a book. It is a belief they earned through hundreds of mechanically executed trades, through months of tracking discretionary decisions against the evidence, through the slow accumulation of lived proof that the process works over time and that no single trade defines them. That evidence, absorbed at the nervous system level, transforms how the body responds. The stress response that used to fire on every entry no longer fires. Not because it was suppressed, because the beliefs that triggered it no longer exist. I, Mark Douglas, have guided traders through each of these stages. And I can tell you that the ones who reach the intuitive stage are never the most talented. They are the most patient. They are the ones who trusted that the discomfort of each earlier stage was temporary and necessary, not a sign of failure, but the exact sensation of internal reorganization. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, how long does it take? The honest answer depends entirely on how seriously you took the first two stages. Traders who rush through the mechanical stage, who never actually prove 20 consecutive trades of perfect execution, those traders never reach the intuitive stage. They oscillate between the first two forever, mistaking occasional flashes of flow for mastery. Traders who commit fully to the mechanical stage for 3 to 6 months and the subjective stage for 6 to 12 months can reach the intuitive stage in 2 to 3 years. That sounds long. It is not. It is the fastest path. Every shortcut extends the timeline. But this stage has its own trap, and it is the most subtle of the three. The trap of the intuitive stage is complacency. The trader begins to feel that they have arrived. They stop doing the daily rituals that got them here, the pre-market preparation, the emotional logging, the process scoring. They stop tracking because tracking feels unnecessary. They stop writing because they believe they already know. And slowly, invisibly, the foundation begins to erode. The mechanical discipline that underlies the intuition degrades. The discretionary decisions that were once validated by data start drifting back toward untracked impulse. And one day the trader realizes they are back in the subjective stage, or worse, in the chaos that preceded the mechanical stage, and they have no idea how it happened. It happened because mastery is not a destination. It is a maintenance program. The daily habits of the first two stages are not scaffolding you remove once the building is complete. They are the building. Remove them and the building collapses, no matter how well it was constructed. Here is what you must do to survive the intuitive stage. You must never stop doing the work. Professional athletes at the peak of their careers still practice fundamentals. Professional musicians still run scales. Professional traders still track their process, still log their emotions, still review their execution against their plan. Not because they need to at this level, because the moment they believe they do not need to is the exact moment the decline begins. Now let me bring everything together. 3 stages, 3 distinct sets of demands, 3 traps. In the mechanical stage, you build the foundation. Pure rule adherence, zero deviation, for at least 20 consecutive trades. The trap is premature escape, abandoning the rules before they have been validated over a meaningful sample, because the discomfort of mechanical execution feels like proof the rules are wrong. In the subjective stage, you integrate experience. You learn to use discretion, but only where the data execute it adds value. The trap is self-deception, believing that every deviation from the plan is sophisticated when most of them are emotional. In the intuitive stage, rules and instinct merge. You operate from genuine psychological alignment with uncertainty. The trap is complacency, believing you have graduated beyond the daily practices that sustain the state. If you are listening to this and wondering which stage you are in, ask yourself one question. Can I point to 20 consecutive trades where I followed every rule of my plan without exception? If the answer is no, you are in the mechanical stage. Do not trade by feel. Do not incorporate discretion. Execute your plan, trade by trade, until the number hits 20 with zero deviations. Then we talk about what comes next. If the answer is yes, ask the second question. Do I track my discretionary decisions separately? And does the data show they outperform the mechanical baseline? If you do not track them, or the data says they subtract value, you are in the subjective stage. Your job is not to trust your instinct. Your job is to test it. If both answers are yes, if you have the mechanical foundation and the data-validated discretion, you are approaching the intuitive stage. Your job now is to maintain the practices that brought you here every single day for as long as you trade. Mark Douglas spent his entire career showing traders that the journey to consistency is not primarily intellectual. It is psychological. It unfolds in stages, and the trader who can identify where they are, accept what that stage demands, and resist the temptation to skip ahead is the one who eventually reaches the other side. Not because they were smarter, because they were patient, because they trusted the process more than they trusted their feelings, because they understood